Let's now take you to Waterkloof Air Force Base in Centurion, where the repatriation process of 49 anti-apartheid activists from Zambia and Zimbabwe is underway. The plane bringing the remains is expected to land this hour. My colleague Vuyo Mvoko is following that story for us, as well as Zianda also following that story for us this afternoon. Let's start off with Vuyo first. Vuyo, so the delay that we've been speaking about a lot of now, but there's also the sense of anticipation that I'm gathering from some of the people that you've spoken to this afternoon.
Indeed, Aldrin, there is an air of anticipation, but everyone has been patient given the delays. As a matter of fact, right now, as I am speaking to you, in the two marquees in front of me, an early dinner is being served, an early one at that, given, of course, because of the delays. So they thought then people maybe should eat in the meantime while everyone is waiting for that plane to land. But there is an air of anticipation. And I get a sense that even though there's a bit of frustration given the delay, but not everyone is sort of feeling out of place, you know, or feeling that when is this thing coming, let's get over it and done with, or that kind of a thing. People are really looking forward to that moment when that plane lands and, of course, whatever else is going to follow. One of the people who are here waiting with us is someone who's been integrally involved with this process. He is one of the chaplains of the South African Military Veterans Association. He has been part of this process in Zambia, but also in Zimbabwe. And he's going to briefly take us through what he and his comrades, plus also families and the officials who have been involved, have been doing over the last while. Chaplain, a very good afternoon to you. Thanks very much for your time. You accompanied the multidisciplinary team that has gone to Zambia and to Zimbabwe, together, of course, with members of the family. Just briefly take us through what you've had to do and what your specific role was.
Thank you very much, Mvoko, and your listeners. This is something, when one will say it's not new, it has been a long plan that one day this repatriation and exhumation of our comrades who died in exile, once everything is in order, our people will be repatriated back to their countries. Remember, this is what the late and the then president of the African National Congress, Comrade Oliver Reginald Tambo, he used to utter such statements when we were burying our people in exile. His closing remarks will always be saying, we are not leaving you alone here. Once we achieve our freedom, we will come and exhume you and take your remains back to South Africa and be giving a decent burial. And this is exactly what is happening. Well, we thank the government. We started at Lusaka. Then the following week, we went to Livingstone. Now, this is something I was explaining to that. I cannot explain to people what happened. Remember, there was a group of 8 who drowned in 1988 crossing Zambezi River. What happened there, right in the middle of the river, the hippopotamus attacked the boat of these 8 comrades. But one managed to swim, and he's the one who managed to report what had happened. And Zambian people, soldiers, police, they managed to trace all these 7 people. Now, on this particular day, when we were going to repatriate their spirit, we went along the river Zambezi. We were not exactly at the spot where the incident happened, but we were just along the river. Now, after the traditional healers did their job, now they handed over to me as the chaplain. Then I said, let me do a roll call. I called all the 7 names. Immediately after the last 7 names, I said, we have come to pick up your spirit, and it is only now you are going back to be giving a decent funeral at home. And all of a sudden, about 500-600 meters away from where we were, 2 big hippopotamus just came out from the river and they made quite a big noise as if they are responding to what I'm saying. And this is something which I've been saying, I cannot explain. But the spirits, you could see they were there. They were responding. And the cause of incidents, they did that. And it's a closure because the families were along the river. They also witnessed this thing. They said, hey, Chaplain, this is something we have never experienced. It means our brothers, our sisters are responding now, that we are free now, we are going home to rest in peace. And this is exactly what is happening. But what is important, it's a name that I call closure to families. Families have been crying. Remember, you left with somebody to exile. When you come back, he's not there. He died in exile. And families will keep on asking you, what happened to my brother, my sister, whatever. But today, it's a closure. Even the families, you could see them that, thank you, government, for what you have done. It is only now when you say, may their soul rest in peace. I thank you.
Now, very briefly before I let you go, Chaplain, we've been talking about these ceremonies, the ceremonies that had to take place this afternoon in Zimbabwe, a ceremony that had to take place earlier in Zambia before that plane left for Zimbabwe. You were talking about ceremonies you've had to be part of as the remains were being exhumed. Very, very briefly, give us or paint us a picture of what the ceremonies are like, who gets to participate, doing what exactly, but very briefly.
Just to say to you, Vuyo, it's a question of saying we are now repatriating you back to South Africa. And we were part and parcel of this group which was exhuming and repatriating the spirits. And one was under the impression that when they land here, it's a question of saying we are now handing them over to the relevant structures here in South Africa. That is our role. We need to report that mission accomplished, we have done this, and now we are handing over to the authorities.
But back in Zambia and, of course, in Zimbabwe, you had to go there as a team. There were traditional healers among yourselves. There were men of cloth like you. You had to pray. Traditionally, healers had to burn imbepo. Is that what we're talking about?
Exactly. This is what we did. And according to both of us, the spiritual side and traditional healers, we took a decision that we cannot enter somebody's house without informing the local. We invited a bishop in Lusaka on the side of Christians. And on the side of traditional healers, they invited the local traditional healers. So we went to the cemetery to talk, and a go-ahead was given to us by the locals. It's according to the traditionals. But with us, it's one thing, it's a spiritual, reading the Bible, which says, Joseph said to his brothers, when you achieve your freedom, please come along with my bones. And this is what we're doing as Christians now. This is exactly what's happening as Christians. We are taking your bones along with us to be giving a decent funeral in South Africa.
Chaplain, thank you very much for your time and insights.
Thank you very much.
A man, of course, as I said earlier, who was part of some of the ceremonies that had to be conducted, Aldrin, in Zambia, but also in Zimbabwe. They are here, of course, to witness the outcomes of that process that he, among others, was a part of. For now, though, as we wait here at Waterkloof Air Force Base, I'm going to throw it back to you, Aldrin, in studio.
Yeah, and now we go off to Ziyanda Ngobo, who's also joining us from Waterkloof Air Force Base, and just listening into that conversation there, Ziyanda, which actually speaks to the precision in which this process has been followed.
Absolutely, and it's been an interdepartmental process, might I add, Aldrin, from the Arts and Culture Department, which is the leading department here as the custodian of the country's national heritage policy and that exile repatriation program, right through to the Department of Defense and Military Veterans, who are also going to be providing assistance such as the burial costs, but also ensuring that there are monuments that are erected both in the countries where the remains of these exiles were exhumed, but also here in South Africa. In fact, there's been lots of talk about having having a National Heroes Acre that is established, because as you'll know, Eldrin, on Friday there will be that official ceremony, and after that then, unfortunately, because there isn't a special place for war heroes, they'll have to be taken to their respective provinces where the families then will be taking care of those burials. But I can tell you from the Military Veterans Department, Eldrin, there's a lot of planning that's gone into place, as we spoke to the Acting Director General, Nontobeko Mafu.
Uniform members will then take the coffins and prepare them, because they're coming in boxes. They will be prepared in different coffins, and they will then be saluted. And you will then have then moved in different hearse after the ceremony and all the elements that will be deployed. And then they will be taken to one military hospital, which is a hospital for defense in Pretoria. And then again, they will be transported back to Freedom Park on Friday.
So that's Nontobeko Mafu, the Acting Director General in the Military and Veterans Department, talking about what happens as soon as that plane touches down. You'll know, Elgin, that the plane started in Zambia, where the remains were fetched both in Livingstone and Lusaka, and then it made its way to Zimbabwe. Now, we understand that part of the reason why there's been a delay is that the aircraft also had to refuel from Harare. So that's why there's a bit of that delay. But I can tell you from where we are, there have been so many stories, Elgin, that have been coming out about the kind of stories of these exilees, the conditions under which they left, the scars that were left behind for the families that remained in South Africa, and the role that they actually played in the liberation of this country. Those include the daughters of Todd Machigeza, a journalist like you and I who used to write for Drum Magazine, but more famously known for his musical compositions in the King Kong musical.
I'm very emotional, okay? Am I allowed to say I represent the countless children who lost their fathers, mothers, siblings, role models in exile?
He passed away in Lusaka in 1968. That was the last time I saw him. It's obviously an amazing feeling to be here today. First of all, I'd like to thank the South African government. I'd like to thank the different departments, the Missing Persons Task Team for all the amazing work that they put into this.
And so, Eldrin, as we continue to wait in anticipation for the arrival of that plane, just a reminder that on Friday there will be another ceremony that will be led by President Cyril Ramaphosa. You would have heard the acting DG there talking about the Military One Hospital as it stands. We understand that the President will also lead that procession from Military One to Freedom Park, where there will be a much bigger ceremony held for those 49 exilees.
Thank you so much, Ziandan, over there joining us from the Waterkloof Air Force Base. So we anticipate that perhaps maybe during this hour that flight may just land at the Waterkloof Air Force Base. We take you to this now. ANC veteran Snuki Zikalala says various departments work together to ensure the success of the repatriation project. He says government was inundated with requests from families who wanted their loved ones to be brought home after the announcement was made in 2020 to repatriate some of those who died in exile.
It all started with the exhumation, handover and reburial of the exhumed remains of deceased victims who died during the liberation era, 1960 to 1994, which was the TRC mandate period. You would remember the TRC had recommended that a form of symbolic reparation should be fulfilled. So exhuming, handing over, and then reburying these remains is fulfilling that TRC recommendation, symbolic burial.
We then brought in the defense, we brought in NPA, we brought in, make sure that we bring in other stakeholders, arts and culture, and then we told them that draw a budget for this occasion, and this budget is the one that is going to inform the activities. And of course that was done. And when the 7th administration came in place, Gayton Mackenzie found the file on the table, and so it was executed. And so we're very happy that is happening. This is a first roll call that we're doing. Other comrades will be repatriated from Angola, others from Mozambique, and others from Botswana, and others from Swaziland. And so I think basically families want closure. And so we're not going to repatriate comrades where the families are saying that they are fine, but if families approach us as the ANC, we'll definitely make sure that that happens. Being in exile was not a bed of roses. It was very difficult because you've been away from home, where you had no contact with your families at all, where you lived in a foreign land, where you have to learn the language, where you have to go and study, or you go to military training, where you did not even think that you'll be able to come to South Africa itself. And some of them died of natural causes, some of them died because they were ambushed by UNITA, and some of them died because they were sick. And so we are saying that it was not the bed of roses. And people risked their lives for what we have today, for this constitutional democracy we have today.